Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, Channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs. 2016 forward. And this is usually where I insert. Joining us today is David Morassutti. Well, as usual, but he's a little late. He's gone for a little trip to church, and it's taking him a little while longer to get here. I don't know. Maybe he spent some time in the confessional. I don't know. Maybe that's what the problem is. I don't know, but we'll find out when he gets here. We'll ask him. Did he spend too much time in the confessional? So you've got me by yourself right now, and I'm the only thing you're looking at. I'm sorry. I apologize. I know you could do a lot better than stare at me, but here it is. This is where it is. All right. So finally, the big story in my mind is that we finally have a coach that gets fired again. Now, this is a coach that, well, Paul LaPolice is a class act, and as I posted, I want to make sure that people understand the dynamic when it comes to coaches and general managers. Now, I know there's Paul LaPolice has said that no, I wasn't none of that. I wasn't his guy. That wasn't nothing. No, didn't happen. Wasn't going to be. Not true. The problem with that is it doesn't matter about the relationship between the GM and the coach. All right, this is my point. It does not matter about their relationship in reality because perception is 9/10 of reality, and so there are a lot of different people that are involved when it comes to a sports franchise. And so when someone says it wasn't his guy, they're just simply saying that the GM didn't pick this coach. What happens is, how do the players feel about that situation? How do they feel about a coach there and things aren't going well, and there's a GM that just comes in after the coach? If there's somebody to impress, who would that be? Who do you think? I think it's common sense. Bottom line is that if the team's not playing well, we all know who's going to be gone. And it's much easier to fire the coach than it is, right, to fire 43 players or a whole whack of them, right? It's a lot harder. And that's the old thing where coaches are hired to be fired, and they're harder to fire if you hired them. And if you hired them, there's agreements in place, you have conversations, you make sure there's a symbiotic relationship. The issue is, was that relationship existent with LaPolice and his GM? Not saying it wasn't, but perception is what it is. So whether it be the media, whether it be people like me who go, well, he's not his, he wasn't his pick, so he's not as attached to him as he might be if it was his choice. And that I don't believe that's not true. I just happen to believe it's true. That if you pick the coach, you're picking the guy that works best with you, that understands the plan that you have in mind. In this case, there's a new coach to a GM that's brand new. So new relationship. They have to work things out. And worse than anything, the reason why LaPolice lost his job is because simply his quarterback went down. He never had a real opportunity to survive. If he was the GM's coach, he wasn't in year 2 or 3 like he really was. He was in what, year 4, I guess, with the Ottawa Red Blacks. And so he had plenty of time to prove what he could do. So the GM was stuck, right? By this guy not being his guy is that he just got here. So now he's got a problem. And the problem is something that he inherited. Unfairly to LaPolice, he lost his quarterback, and that's what caused him to be in trouble because he didn't have a quarterback. And we've learned in the Canadian Football League that if you don't have a quarterback, there's a good chance you're not going to win. You're definitely not going to win a championship. You need a good quarterback to win a championship. In fact, you need better than a good quarterback. You need a great quarterback. Or you need a quarterback that plays great in key times. He doesn't have to be a great quarterback 24/7, 360. Oh, there aren't that many days in the Canadian Football League. But, from the time is it June yet to, American Thanksgiving, basically. Quarterbacks can be that good that long. But if they're not great in that last game, they make it to the last game, their greatness is severely diminished. So they had a guy, Mazzoli, who'd been to the big dance and had numbers in his career that showed that he was a good CFL quarterback with a hint of greatness, just hadn't proved it yet. In other words, hadn't won a championship. But this team would not have struggled to the extent it has all year. The Ottawa Redblacks deserve better, but unfortunately, a foul took out their quarterback. So now you're in the situation. If this was, I just want to make my point, and I'll finish it here. If this was La Police's first year, having been hired by the GM that's here now in Ottawa, would he have been fired? There you go. So the question is, would he have been fired? The answer is no, he wouldn't have been fired. Not in his first year. This general manager has only had the team for a year. Now he's going to get his coach. And by his coach, I mean a guy that he picks, a guy that comes to the table, introduced, contract he signs with him, every little detail that's in that contract, every little conversation they have in regards to how the team is going to operate, how it will be run, how it will be coached, and how the general manager to make sure that that team will be coached that way. Those words are going to be had. And these are decent human beings, character people. La Police is a character person. I'm sure they're going to bring in a coach. Most people who work in the Canadian Football League have character. They're full of character. So they'll make their decision. They'll get together. They'll make a conversation. And now they'll start, early working on next year. But they're working on next year. I don't think there's any doubt in that. So who can be? I picked my picks, and then I got my picks over here that just a friend on Facebook said, "Who do you think, Frank?" So I said Henry Burris, Mark Killam, Monson, Hall, Pierce. They were from Calgary and Winnipeg. And then Hamilton's Kari Jones is an opportunity. Mark Washington, he's due. Richie Hall, it doesn't matter what position's open. He's going to get consideration. He's done a great job. And here are the other choices. Bob Dice was obvious. Can he keep the job in Ottawa? This is from Ferguson. I didn't put Mike Benavides in there, and that's one I overlooked. Mark Killam he has here, Mark Washington. Corey Mace. He's done a great job with the Argos, but it's his first year as defensive coordinator. In other words, handling a big part of a team, right? Now, Jordan Maksimic, how much credit does he get for Nathan York? And I had Henry Burris as well. Henry Burris would be the guy that they would bring in, I think, maybe not to the same extent, but to a degree, like Pinball Clemens means to the Toronto Argonauts. This is a guy who won a Grey Cup with them. This is a guy that was their quarterback in the early days when the team had phenomenal success, literally from day one. So I think he's not a lock, but he's a good shot. But I think when I look at my list and I look at Ferguson's list, I'd like to see Mark Washington has a great shot. I'd like to see Mark Killam do it. When Calgary had to have a coach step up because their coach had COVID, Mark Killam was a guy that was brought in there. Now he's a special teams coach, but there's a pretty good one in Winnipeg. So, maybe he could be the guy. But I think it's too early for Maksimic. Benavides is a good shot, but he's had a lot of kicks at the can. if the Argos are an indication of how Ottawa will go, a fresh face, that would be a Killam or a Mark Washington. Um, that'd be the way they go. So, if I was a betting man, if I was a betting man, I'd really go with Henry Burris for Hamilton. He's done some good work in the NFL. He has been. We may not have seen him coaching here in Canada, but he's been coaching in the NFL. He's been learning that trade. Has he learned enough to this point? Well, the Montreal Canadiens brought in a guy who never coached in the National Hockey League. I don't think he even coached in junior. I think he only coached in Pee Wee hockey. Um, I think Henry Burris could be the guy. The end of this year could be part of the learning curve for him, and he'll come in with a bit of experience next year. And I think I think Ottawa fans will come to him and will have faith in him and will get rally behind him. And he'll have a big enough name that in that locker room, I think he'll command the respect that a head coach needs. So I'm going to say Henry Burris is the guy for reasons over and above coaching experience. Every other reason to pick a head coach, he fits the bill. The experience one is the only weakness, but that could be a real big one. And I guess my fallback one would be Mark Washington. I think he's the guy that's ready the most out of other than Hall, but I'm not sure whether he wants to leave just yet, but we'll find out, I guess, this off season. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the Toronto Argonauts and talking about the game that they played against Calgary, 29-2. Their offense looked terrible. Was it because of Calgary? Or is it something we've seen all season where when they put up good offensive numbers, it seemed to be they put good offensive numbers with the contribution of great defense, pick sixes, interceptions, the leg of Faraday, which has been really good. He's been a guy that's been 62, 65-yard kicks that have gone well. See there, David just snuck in here. David, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Sorry, I am late.
Were you stuck in confession?
It's even worse than that. It was a dead school situation.
Yeah, David was doing a good deed.
I was.
And good for you. So welcome to the program. And I talked a little bit about the new coach in Ottawa. Who may it be? I'll give you a second to catch up, a couple of minutes here to give me some of your. Are you prepared to talk about who might be the coach? Have you given it any thought?
You know what? I don't have specific names. I've heard names being thrown out there. Actually, I'm gonna pick up the name right now because you know what? Like there are so many.
Mark Washington.
I've heard of Mark. I heard Mark Washington.
McSimic.
Yep. Yeah, he's another one too. I see so many. The thing is the CFL tends, and Frank tends to go back the wheel. They don't
recycle.
Yeah, the wheel just keeps going, right? I want to see something new. Like what the Argos did was new when they brought in Ryan Dinwiddie. When Orlando Steinauer went in Hamilton, this was new, right? There are a lot of guys.
Through Khari Jones, same thing. You can keep going.
Honestly, Khari Jones was another person I was just about to bring up, right? There's so many,
and that guy in Winnipeg.
Yep. Right. There's you can't tell me that. I'm trying to think of another name here. There's probably how about Devon Claybrooks, right?
Yeah, we got him on the show a couple of times. Does he get it?
I felt was good, and you and I probably admit that didn't exactly get the best opportunity, considering it was almost like a one and done situation. Who's another one that I was thinking of? Oh, Jordan Maximic, I think is how you pronounce
Simic, yeah, but yeah, whatever, however you say it. He's
it.
the guy in BC that's the offensive coordinator there. That is he the reason why Nathan Rourke was so good, or is the reason he looks good because of Nathan
Yeah.
Rourke?
Some,
Right
some,
now, it looks like it's because of Rourke.
yeah, some people are
Really.
Anthony Burse because of his time in BC and the time in the NFL he spent in the NFL. Some of these guys want to stay in the game and they want to get those opportunities.
One of the guys I'd like to see get consideration is Mark Killam. He's a special teams guy in Calgary, and I was telling the viewers that he's the guy that took over when Dickinson had COVID and couldn't coach. He was the guy they gave the starting, and I think he's well worth it. He's been around for a while. I think it's around time for him to stretch how far he can go. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Richie Hall is the guy that has been the closest to getting a head coaching job that fits your definition there. I don't think he's been a head coach,
No, I don't think
not yet. I don't think he's been, and
so.
he's a guy who's ready.
So here's another thing I'll say. There's coaches that are there are coordinators who are good as coordinators, but as soon as they get either a bump up to head coach or even to go from quarterbacks coach to an offensive coordinator, totally different. Sometimes you're just a good quarterbacks coach or you're a good offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
Maybe being a head coach takes it's just so there's so much more involved, right? A lot of Argos fans right now with Ryan Dinwiddie are questioning whether he is a head coach just because of the in-game decisions you have to make as a head coach. There's been issues there, right? I think of that Grey Cup, the last year's Grey Cup, where Hamilton made some decisions that ultimately cost them the game. The kneel in the end zone, right, and things like that. Those are coaching decisions that make people debate whether can this guy be a coach? Is that the right move for him? I'm not saying that, it takes time to become a good head coach. We look at the best head coach right now arguably the best head coach right now in the CFL. You don't think some wanted him out the door? He was almost out the door,
Oh no, he wasn't going to make it through his second year.
right? Oh,
Absolutely.
like Mike O'Shea, nobody's questioning right now.
Now,
He has all the pieces, but you're not always gonna. Here's the thing: as a head coach, too, you're not always gonna have all the pieces. You have to work with what you have. Can you make the most out of what you have? That's what makes good head coaches. They know what the strengths of their team are, and they let those flourish. They know what the weaknesses are, and they work like those are the things you have to be able to do. And the thing with Paul Lapalese, because this was his second attempt second attempt as a head coach, he has shown he is a great offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like maybe he wasn't given the best of options in Ottawa because he didn't exactly
we
have.
know he didn't. We know he didn't get he didn't get a good shot as a head coach. He had a general manager that left all kinds of openings in the lineup, holes, lots of holes in the lineup. Why he didn't fill the holes? I mean, dummies like me, I won't bring you into it. Dummies like me knew what the holes were with Ottawa, and none of those holes were getting filled. And eventually, the team just kept playing worse and worse. You know, that I guess if I can, the point I want to make before we think about what you said, let's remember that the agreement to coach was not made under the new GM.
Mhm.
And when I say that, I mean, is this the coach that this GM feels he can work with? This isn't. I know La Police went out of his way to say no. I know people are saying I wasn't his guy, but I was his guy. Felt like his guy. I understand that feeling like he's a guy. As I was trying to say with the viewers, David. At the end of the day, coaches are ruled by fans, players, assistant coaches, general managers, ownership. All those people have influence on what happens with that coach, right? Especially the players. So now a new GM comes in and things start to go wrong. What do the players do? They make sure they can keep their job. How does that help them be a team unit? Not at all. It's everybody for themselves. So what happens is, and then you lose your quarterback. If this was the point I was making with the viewers is, if this was La Police's first year with this GM and this GM hired him, would he fire him today or yesterday? No, he wouldn't.
No.
So the point is, the die was cast when the new GM came here. The new GM was hired because this team was terrible. It's the whole reason why the new GM came in. And now this GM's got to work with the coach that was there, but he's working with a coach who's handcuffed. He tried to unhandcuff him by bringing Mazzoli in, and that was basically, the writing was on the wall when Mazzoli went out the door, right? When Mazzoli couldn't start. So, and then to your point, you're right. There's all that other stuff. Is a coach appropriate for, does he have the tools to be a winner? But I say there has to be a relationship between the coach and the GM.
There has to be. No. There's no doubt about that. You definitely need your. And look, when a new GM is brought in and he inherits a coach, the coach is kind of, unless the GM comes right out and says we are committed to this coach for the long run, that coach is going to feel like he's walking on eggshells. Now, here's the other part of it. CFL doesn't exactly make it easy to get rid of a coach.
No, it doesn't.
Right? You have to kind of you can't just say, we got to get rid of this coach. Well,
there's still money on the table.
Yeah, you got to be able to. You got to pretty much tell yourself, can we write it out with this coach? Can we make it work? That's what the CFL is trying to tell these teams. You want to get rid of this
try.
It's almost like when you're, what's it? Okay, you have a car, it's not running well, it's starting to rust, but then your parent, you tell your parents, I need a new car. Well, does your car run? Well, yes. Does it get you to point A to point B? Yeah, but there's issues. Can you afford a new car? No, not really. Guess you're stuck with it.
Then you're driving the car and it needs new brakes, but you don't know it because you just bought it. And then you have an accident because the car didn't respond the way it's supposed to. Who gets blamed for that? The driver.
Exactly. No, exactly.
I get your analogy. I was trying to add to it. Sorry.
I can't stress enough how poorly the CFL handicaps teams in the product by having these coaching
They
caps.
can't help it, David. I agree with you, but they can't help it.
They can't help it because guess what? This is what keeps teams like Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Edmonton from losing too much money. Because guess what? They work within a confined budget, and they like that. They do like it. Unfortunately, and they're the ones, I think, maybe, I don't know who's leading the charge on this, but I'm sure they don't mind it because.
Let's explore how it helps. I'll start, and then you can do. Yep. What you're saying and what happens is this, folks, and what David's alluding to, and I want to frame it a little bit, is that if you have a really good coach and it's contract time, his salary is going to be influenced by what other teams are willing to pay. If you have a cap on management, right, salary, that means the other team can't go crazy like it used to and would blow up his salary, right? So now what happens is every team is working with the same amount of money. So when a coach gets really good, he can make a decision. He's not going to make much more money anywhere else, David. So what happens? He ends up staying with the team that he's with. He might as well, especially if he's locked into success, right? Mm-hmm. Because to go to another team and not have success when you have it already and the money's not any different, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't make that change.
No, you're definitely right on that because you're pretty much, it's just like any salary cap in any league, right? you might be able to go and get more money, but how much more money are you really going to get when the team on the other end, right next to you is working with the same budget as the team you're negotiating with? And we know, Frank, these teams and these owners talk to each other. Let's remember that ever. Let's try to keep salaries down. You don't think that they're doing that with coaches too? Hey, what do you think about with you're signing this coach too? That much? Okay. We were kind of thinking that we're going to give our guy this much. And you notice some teams, like in Hamilton, they decided we're going to give Orlando Sinauer the head coach job. Oh, by the way, he's also going to be the GM. He's going to do this. He's going to do that.
Vice president.
Why do you think they did all that?
Well, because they're using that salary to attach to his name. His name is what the letters that follow his name have money attached to each of them as part of the budget. So,
You don't think that after we heard about that report that he was getting offers from the NCAA, who, by the way,
oh boy,
gave their coach.
they will dwarf what the Canadian
All
Football League.
right, so you don't think maybe Hamilton got kind of wind of that and saying, "What are we going to have to do to keep this guy around?"
That's the key, though. It's. I don't think I don't think it's apples and pears when we compare. U.S. college. Saban did what? What did he sign for? 10, 15 million a
He
year? He
just
just signed or something.
he
Wasn't
just
20, was it?
record after the Georgia coach got he's fresh off fresh off a $93.6 million contract that extends to 2030.
Which works out to how much a year? 20,
Let's see.
15, or 20, isn't it? I remember this is a while ago now. This
Frank,
is.
I didn't get into this business for the math, and then every day I
Oh,
remember.
okay, okay. Well, how much was it for how many years? And I'll do the math.
So right
93 million for how many years?
so I think it's up until 2030. So
That's 8 years.
8 years.
That's 10 million, 10, 11. Yeah, no, 10 million, 10.5 million. Something
Okay.
like that. 10.25, so 10 and a quarter million. The point is $10 million. What's the salary cap in the Canadian Football League for the players?
Like just over $5 million.
I don't think the CFL can compete that in that way. But the bottom line is, and I'm grateful that it is here in the Canadian Football League. We're like a family. So and by a family I mean it's a great neighborhood to live in. Use another analogy. It's a great place to work. Is it a place you get rich? Not really. I think it's fair to say you don't get rich. The value in being in the Canadian Football League is it's a professional football league. Listen, it's not the same league it was before the pandemic. They got kicked in the crotch. Like I said before, I joked about the pandemic. Took a tourist hit against the Canadian Football League. It never had a chance, never saw it coming, never just the way the Canadian Football League is built. The pandemic was created to wreak havoc on this great league. So it's really hard. It's really hard for them to give the people that work, and we're not just talking about, as always, for us, for you and I, it's not always just talking about the players, the coaches. We know the people that work at the Canadian Football League, and I know how decent these people are, and I know how many people have been laid off. So the point is, there's been a lot of suffering in the Canadian Football League. And so money is a bit of a problem right now. What they're doing the best they can with the money that they have, which isn't a fair representation of what they could bring in, right?
Mhm.
Regardless of how the Argos are doing, in attendance. I think it's going to get better, and I think the league has. I think it's a great league to be a part of. If you're a head coach in this league, and it's what you want to do, it's a good place to do it. So I don't think Ottawa's going to have trouble finding a coach. I think a coach that's somewhere else already. Like you, I agree, and I told the viewers that before you came in. It's funny. It's exactly what I said. A new guy, and my long shot, my new guy is Washington. The guy I'd like to see get the job is Killam, But I think Burris is going to get it because and here's my thinking. To me, he's like Pinball Clemens is to Toronto in Ottawa. I think he has a bit of that flavor because when he was there, they were brand new and they won a Grey Cup early in their history, right? They did fantastic, and he has been working around coaching in the NFL and in other places. So it's not like it's a new idea for him. And I even compared it to the Montreal Canadiens, who brought in a guy who didn't have any experience coaching in the NHL. He coached the end of last year, and now they trust him enough for this year. I think they could do Ottawa. The Red Blacks could do the same thing with Burris, with Hank.
Yeah, and look, you don't think the quarterback that last helped you win a great cup wouldn't be a great addition?
Would
Or
buy them time too.
that fan base, I I, I credit those fans for showing up because this has been a very tough season for them.
It's not as tough as Edmonton, though.
No,
We'll get to
it's
that
not.
later.
I mean, you've been through winning a great cup to then having. I'm not even going to call them competitive seasons.
Not existing to winning a Grey Cup. And then all that stuff. They did everything backwards, right? It's totally backwards. I mean, they should have come in, not playing very well and then work towards a Grey Cup and then maybe be bad again. But this is a team that won the championship in their second year. Goodness.
Hamilton, I'm sure Hamilton fans love to hear that one.
Oh, jeez.
But I think what it needs, it reminds, when we talk about the East versus the West, right? The West has
That
been stable for so long because I always mention this. It's not just the players; it's the staff. How much turnover has there been in Calgary? Yeah, they've had assistants, coordinators come and go, but the guys at the top, the ones leading the charge, are still there. Same goes for Winnipeg. BC, so it looks like they got something
every
going
team.
there.
Every team. Campbell's been there for a while now.
Yeah, he's been there long enough and he's gonna stay there because they're doing well, right? Saskatchewan, even though this year hasn't gone their way, they've been in that frame mind for a long time either. And then you look at the
Continuity,
East,
check.
and you look at the East, and that's what the Argos said they were trying to do. They want to do this the right way. Hamilton's trying to do that the right way. Ottawa hasn't done it, unfortunately. I mean, they were doing it when Campbell was there, and then they went back because you had a GM at the time didn't really. There was issues there. Remember the front office there, and then eventually they made that decision. In Montreal, we thought they were going in the right path. Then they decided to go in a different direction, and now this current direction might be the one that they're going to stick with. But it's going to be a rough. It's going to be
Well,
rough for Ottawa. But what they need to do is they need to right now the GM just has to say this is the plan. We're going to stick to this plan, and he needs to have ownership commit to it because a plan without commitment, fans aren't going to get behind it. That's what they need to sell, something that the fans can get behind.
I'll define the Western Division of the Canadian Football League and the Canadian Division like US dollars versus Canadian dollars. In the Eastern Division, the wins aren't worth as much as they are in the Western Division. In other words, when the teams in the East play head to head and the teams in the West play head to head, you've got two different competitive levels. Let's be honest here. It's looking a little better now in the East that Montreal is doing what they're doing, but as they're doing that, we watched what Toronto did, and Toronto ends up becoming a team that can't hold a candle to the Calgary Stampeders by virtue of one game. All right, it's one game. Oh wait, hang on. The last time they played, the same thing happened. So it's pretty safe to say that Calgary is not in the same league as the Toronto Argonauts, or the Toronto Argonauts aren't in the same league with the Calgary Stampeders. They haven't proven it on the field, and that's where you prove it. Never mind potential. Never mind what it says on your roster, what your roster looks like. It's what happens on the field. So in the East, the compete level is not as strong as it is in the West, David. And to your point, and I think the continuity that's in the West is because they can't afford to take chances to change things up. They need to build, constantly build. Calgary's the perfect example. Next man up, next man up. They have the management team in order, and now it's just a question of getting the right players in there. BC has done it too as well, right? They for years now they've had a really good defense. The problem they've had is they haven't had a quarterback. A wasn't healthy at the beginning, and now last year they didn't have one with experience, and now this year they have one with a bit of experience. He got hurt, so they traded for somebody and they won their last game, and they're fighting for second place in their division. In a division where they're winning 10 games, right? So this is it's a whole different thing. Montreal looks like a team that could end up winning. I think they could win as many as 10 games. They might win 11, in my opinion. They are that strong, especially with who they're playing going out, right? They're playing Toronto. If they sweep Toronto, right, first is theirs. And they'll do it with 10 or 11 wins.
Yeah, right. And it just seems like where one team looks like they're gonna, especially in the East, right? We're looking for one team to kind of say, "All right, we want it."
It
It
hasn't
hasn't. And look, a lot of our Argos fans were really happy with what they saw the last 4 weeks because they were winning and they're winning pretty well. But they're beating teams they should be beating.
Yeah, they didn't beat any 500 plus teams.
Now, yeah, now you're gonna go. You're going up. You have this one. You
Now
had
you're
this one
playing
against
football.
Calgary, and it doesn't get any easier because you got the Lions.
Oh, the Lions is going to be an interesting little
Yep.
little deal. And the Argos aren't very good against Adams.
No, and then you have Edmonton, who you might say, "Oh, but it's in Edmonton. They haven't done well in Edmonton." You don't think Chris Jones, uh, seeing another former team and saying, "Oh, you think this is going to be an easy game? I know your game plan."
I seem to recall, David, that the Argos had won all their home games last year until
Um, and then they finish off against Montreal. The East is going to be an exciting finish because of the two.
excellent finish. And
The
if Hamilton can win a couple of games, it'll be really exciting. And I'd like to see Hamilton make the playoffs. I would like to see, and I'd like them to earn the position, right? And to earn it, they have to have more or equal points to Saskatchewan, because I mean Edmonton still has a chance, but I think it's an outside chance, obviously, just like Ottawa has an outside chance. It's really between Hamilton and Saskatchewan for that final playoff spot. And my preference is to see Hamilton there, only because it's an Eastern Division. Um, Only for that reason. So it's going to be
Saskatchewan
an
fans
interesting
won't
little
like
race.
to hear that, especially if the ones that want to watch their team at home.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, well, uh, I think we've pretty much wrestled this one to the ground. So we know that Ottawa's looking for a coach. Dice is going to be the guy for now. Good for him. We know that the Eastern Division is struggling right now. Not the whole division, but Toronto. I mean, that was a real. It was only one loss, but it's the way they lost that really 29-2. Uh, Unable to. You said it to me on the phone after the game, Frank. You really can't blame Macbeth totally for this, and you couldn't. I mean, he made some really good passes, and you have a receiver looking over the wrong shoulder. Otherwise, he would have caught one, and that would have probably gone for six. There were a couple like that. You and I both have questioned Macbeth's ability to make one of those vertical passes, right? Those deep vertical passes. He hasn't shown us the ability to do it, but he's getting so close now, David. Last week I spoke to you folks, and you folks now, after if you listen to if you watch last week's program, you can say, "Well, Frank, Macbeth didn't look nice, nothing like you thought he might look." All I'm saying is He is playing better. He is making very important throws. They're catchable, but his receivers, whom you and I we applaud because we think they're great, haven't made the catches. I mean, Daniels didn't. There were two catches he should have made that he didn't make. You know what? And I'm not here to. I'm not trying to kick Daniels or nothing. I'm just trying to put things in perspective.
What I say is, the worst thing you can do, and I haven't written my story on the game yet because I want to take a very deliberate. I don't like writing right after for myself. Now, other people have to write in the moment. I get that. I'm my own writer. I'm my own boss. I get to write kind of right when I need to. But I always like to remind fans, don't immediate post your reaction. If you want to have a meaningful conversation, because in the moment you can say something and then you kind of go back on it a few days later and you're like, that was a little silly to say. To blame one player from as and this is why I said it's not on McLeod because it's not all his fault, right?
Absolutely not.
But this is a team failure. So the whole team needs to own up to it, including him, and he will. I know for a fact he will.
You'll
And
find out tomorrow.
I have to figure out when they're gonna have their practice. They might have had a walkthrough or something outside of getting a chance to. If they will, I will be there. But what I think is important for the Argos in this situation is it's a humbling experience. You're feeling good because you locked up a playoff spot, but now that not only does that loss tell you this is the measuring stick. I said this last week. Calgary's the measuring stick. They didn't measure up to them. Montreal, they're right behind, right? And guess what, Frank? We know for a fact that the Argos have been trying to copy the Calgary model ever since.
And they had a bunch of Calgary guys go. They have so many Calgary guys, the coaching staff upstairs in the booth, on the sideline,
Um,
in uniform, injured and unable to play. They have all kinds of Calgary representation. So that was a big deal for them, especially after losing that first game here in Toronto. There was a little bit of revenge, and if there's nothing else that we've learned, nothing else. Dinwiddie's a very proud guy,
mm,
and I know he was hurting after that game, and it was something he wanted real bad.
I think, yeah, he wants to win these games. McLeod said going into this game, they felt like they deserved a better fate against Calgary because they felt they outplayed them. But here's the thing: the scoreboard doesn't lie, right? It doesn't matter how many because the Argos have done the opposite to other teams. Other teams have put up better numbers, but the Argos come away with the wins. What would really with this game specifically, it was Calgary had a three man rush, meaning three guys. The offensive line has more than three guys on it, and that gave them a problem. Okay, so you can't say you deserved better in the last game and then go out. And I guarantee Calgary heard that and said, "Oh, you thought you deserved better? We're gonna make sure you really earn this one."
You're right, and when you're rushing three and two make it around the outside of the box to get to the quarterback, there's a couple of alarm bells that should be going off in that situation, more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Calgary, well worth the victory. This was a great victory on their part. Was Toronto as bad as the score indicated? I venture to say yes. I mean, the defense was handicapped by two key players going out early in the game, and basically they were bailing water, right? And Smith did a great job. Don't get me wrong, did a great job playing and doing what he did. But still, they lost two key defenders, and this is a team that relies on their defense to really be the stud, part of the game. That they're the studs. Like, I mean, David, they make the big plays, and the past couple of weeks they've made the offensive plays, and we joked about the Argos getting so many points, and 93% of their points came off turnovers, and turnovers are brought to you by the defense, right? So am I leaning really heavy on the offense? Absolutely, I am. And to your point, winning and losing, you know, uh, I get it. You can be happy about the way you lost, or you can be happy about winning. One thing's for sure, though. What you said, 100%. The scoreboard doesn't lie. You're in this not to play well, but to win. And if you don't win,
What
it's
matters?
it's it's meaningless. The only thing that losing well can do is, as individuals, the coach can say to this player, keep doing what you're doing, you're doing it great, keep going. Yeah, pass to that guy, he's doing great. Okay, defensive backfield, DBs, you guys are doing a real great job. Keep doing that, but I need you to do this a little better. You can build a team, you can build cohesion, you can build good play. But bottom line is, if you don't win, you don't win. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Did you kill it? Did you kill it?
It was literally a centipede coming right in front. I am not letting this one get away. You knew exactly what I was doing too.
I thought it was a rat.
Oh my god, the critter!
You had a look of concern on you. We only got a couple of minutes, Meta. I'm going to give you the last couple of minutes.
Last, I mean, this is really in the CFL right now. This is a very interesting season because I feel like you can't. Some will say Winnipeg's still the team to beat, but
Yeah,
I don't know. There's teams that are
out,
playing with good form right now that you can't rule out. So,
Montreal.
like the Alouettes have the Red Blacks this week. The Red Blacks with the new
And that
coach,
you called me to say Frank, and they're getting Stanbuck back.
and they're getting William Stanback. He's returning. That's going to be an interesting one. Hamilton, let's see how they do against Calgary, needing a win.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, like this is a very. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong week. You have
That's not Calgary has a week off, I think.
Hamilton, Saskatchewan. That's critical for Hamilton to win. They lose that game, that might be
They have
their season. Toronto needs to get back into back at it because Montreal's playing Ottawa, and that's going to make life very difficult on them if they lose. Winnipeg, they're not playing. They're just trying to make sure they stay healthy and in form. So that game's kind of
absolutely
they just don't want to lose.
maintain the process.
Well, there are some very intriguing matchups this week. A lot of playoff implications. That's exciting, but you know,
If Hamilton beats Saskatchewan,
that game, I'm going to be glued into that game because that's going to be the most important game of the week. Hopefully,
is
it's the
that
most
Dickinson's
entertaining
last
game
game
too.
if
That's
he
what I'm
loses?
hoping.
Is it Dickinson's last game if he loses?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it could be one of those nail in the coffin types of
Back.
if they were thinking about it, they might get their reason.
If they don't make the playoffs, Dickinson's not coming back. I love the guy. He's a great coach, but it's all about winning and losing, right? But we just finished saying it's great. You can lose nice. That don't matter. You got to win. That's what's got to happen, and that's what it's all about. The fans in Saskatchewan will not put up with anything less.
And they shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, it was fun. Thanks for making it. I know you worked really hard to get here, period. And I struggled a little bit without you. It's like I was hopping on one leg, but it's okay. I survived. And thank you for being here as usual. Thanks for being a big part of this program.
Love it. Thank you, Frank. I always know you have my back. I always know you can carry the show.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter. It's going to happen. He's David Morassutti. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network for CFL Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Till next time.